Alright, so one of our things coming up today, we have lab. Yay, lab. And I think I've set it up so that we can be as efficient as possible with your time. So lab. And then your exam 2 is on Wednesday. As Flora and I were saying, it's going to be over eggs, milk, flavored, chocolate, milk, and cheese. Everything since the last test, right? Eggs, milk, flavored, chocolate, milk, and cheese.
The last test?
Yeah, like we had the test, and then everything since the test. So they on this one.
They said it's the last
No, everything since the last test.
Like, it's October.
No, we got.
I mean, if you want to go for that October,
No, we got one more exam, and then we have a final exam. Plus your video project. Right, you watched the video and then you had homework on chocolate. So that was like my virtual notes. And then flavor was the one I pre-recorded for you. I did. I have it. You bet. All right, let's see here. All right, cooking with milk is where we left off. I'm going to try and get through milk quickly so we can spend more time on cheese. All right, so cooking with milk. There's really three big ways we use milk, right? So first, you often use milk in a batter, right? You make a cake, or you make cookies, or you make pie crust, something. They all involve milk in some way. Milk is the source of the water in the recipe. As well as provides a lot of sugar and a lot of salt. See the sugar in terms of like all those milk sugars that are in there by from the flavor, and then salt is in milk, and that salt is good for protein denaturization and coagulation. So milk by itself can cause its own coagulation. If you let milk sit by itself for a while, you'll get skin on the top of the milk. That's the milk proteins coagulating and forming a solid layer out of the milk. That milk skin is denatured casein, right, which is our milk protein. That has captured calcium, some of the whey molecules, as well as some fat. And the third way we often cook with milk, if you want to call it cooking, is milk foam. Alright, so just like we could do an egg foam, like you whip up an egg and make meringue, you can do the same thing with milk. By whipping it, it makes it foam. So whipped cream would be milk that's been whipped to form a solid kind of thing. So milk foam could be whipped cream, which is again the action of whipping the proteins to force them to denature and then coagulate into a new form. So if you guys are thinking video projects for meringue, you could counterpoint that with whipped cream also. Or for those of you who drink a lot of fancier coffees, right, steamed milk, right, so what you're doing is you're making the milk hot by forcing hot steam through it, which then denatures the milk and forms little tiny bubbles, which then sit on the top of your coffee. It could be whipped cream, or it could be steamed milk for coffee. In this case, you're going to force hot steam into the milk. That hot steam then makes bubbles. That causes protein coagulation and makes permanent bubbles. You're going to force the hot steam in there as little air bubbles. And those bubbles are going to coagulate the proteins around them and then make milk bubbles and steam bubbles, which is what the little thing is on top. If you are looking to either separate the milk, right, letting it sit long enough so it separates by itself, that'd be one thing. Or it's possible that you were heating it and it was scalding. You get the, but that's like adding heat as well as letting the milk do it. So it's kind of a combo thing. Yeah, usually if you're going to let the milk form a skin, it's for the purpose of trying to separate out the whey from the curd later on. Alright, so another way we cook with milk is not in its natural state, right? Oh, milk foams, I had a whole little thing for it. Just kidding. Okay, here's butter and margarine. I had myself. Butter and margarine just means I can write much bigger. Alright, we talked about this a little bit before, in that, right, when we talked about trans fat, margarine was invented by the French when they ran out of butter in the late 1800s. They had a prize for someone who came up with something butter-like. And so somebody was able to take animal fats and turn them into trans fat, vegetable fat, turn them into trans fat, and make butter-ish food, which is margarine. Making butter. If you were, this is again something you could easily do with some friends hanging out on a Friday night. You can make your own butter. What you're going to do is you're going to start off with heavy cream. Put it into a container with a screw top lid. Shake 15 to 20 minutes. Or if you're doing a large amount, right, you have your butter churner, which is that thing. I'll draw one because I'm so good at drawing. Looks like this, right, with that, and have like a stick through it, a little paddly bit at the bottom. Runs into like one of those like Colonial Williamsburg kind of things. Yeah, churn. You churn the butter. So you just put heavy cream in there, and you just move the stick up and down 15 minutes, or you shake it in a little container 15 minutes. That's it, butter. At that point, the milk solids will separate it out from the milk liquid. The milk solids at that point are butter. Show a quick little video. I'll just fast forward through some of it.
Homemade, fresh, cooked butter using just cold, heavy cream. And this is done with no equipment, no electrical machinery at all. Just good old-fashioned arm power. So I'm going to take a mason jar. This is just like a 1 cup size. I'm going to fill it up about 2/3 the way full with very cold, heavy
It was a really crude joke. I'm just giving
I
past
know what
it.
you're thinking. I can't move my arm like that for extended
Oh,
periods
no,
of time.
I didn't miss it, sorry.
Sure you can. I'm sure you do it on a regular basis.
Skipping
You know,
ahead,
which by the way is probably where they got the idea for that product. People making their own butter. Alright, so we're gonna shake that, like I said, 15 to 20 minutes. And what's gonna happen, it's gonna solidify into a lump. See that? But that's not done. That's not butter. You gotta keep shaking until the buttermilk separates. Alright, see there, we have some liquid coming out, but not enough. Keep shaking, keep shaking, keep shaking until it looks like that. You're gonna have a definite separation between the lump of butter and then the buttermilk separating. See it there? Okay? At that point, you're done. By the way, you can save that buttermilk, but it's not the thick, tangy buttermilk like at the store, because this is not cultured. But if you're cooking a recipe and it calls for milk or water, you probably use it. Alright, I'm gonna strain it, making sure I'm just left with the butter. Alright, by the way, I heard there's another step where you wash the butter in like cold water. Although I don't really quite understand what that would be for. So if you've done this and you know why I should wash the butter, let me know. I'm always looking to get butter in this process. Okay? And then I'm gonna wrap it up in a piece of plastic. You can use a crock. You can just, spread this into a little butter crock or rabbit tin. I'm gonna roll it, put it in the fridge until needed. And that's it. Once it's cold, I slice it up, serve fresh, handmade butter, which tastes exactly like store-bought butter.
Mhm.
So really, the only
Yeah. He's saying a food processor I've seen, well, I watched a lot of videos about making butter. The food processor, this is the shortest one. There's like a 35-minute video about making butter. Yes, you can use a, yep, ice cream maker would work. Yeah. You could. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, and some of the other options were when it gets to the point that it's a solid and he was wrapping it up in the saran wrap, you can put different flavors in it. So some people put like honey in at that point, some people put like chives in, whatever you want, some kind of flavoring, and then you have flavored butter that you can then solidify. So when they make like honey butter, whatnot, that's what they're doing. They make honey, they add the honey after it's been formed. So, well, it's different options. So. Let's see.
Dairy butter.
Yeah, we could.
Dairy butter.
I have no doubt that, well, the president was talking to me the other day about making the cheese business more efficient as well as making maybe a butter business. And so we're trying to figure out that.
Dairy butter.
Dairy butter. Yep. So we'll see. We'll see. Yeah. I see it. I see it's very integrated. It's an integrated process. I like that.
We're bringing everything together.
That's right.
Is it just a weight machine? Like coming out and making butter.
Yeah. Well,
There you go.
I'll think about that. All right. So margarine is made by hydrogenation of vegetable oils. Right. We talked about that when we talked about trans fat, the hydrogenation process. I turn my cis fat into trans fat or fully saturated fat. If you had plain old margarine, it would just be white. It would look like Crisco. And so they usually add some sort of coloring to it to make it yellow, to make you think it's butter. And so they usually add some yellow coloring as well as vitamin A and D, which are fat-soluble vitamins, which are the ones that are found in regular butter but aren't found in margarine. So. We've already talked a lot about butter and margarine. Skip ahead to some other things. Yogurt. There's my fancy clip art of yogurt. Right, that looks just like the container. Alright, so there is yogurt. Alright, so yogurt comes from the Turkish word for thick, which indicates kind of the consistency of yogurt. So standard yogurt, not Greek yogurt. Standard yogurt. Contains two types of bacteria. When it says live cultures, it means it has two types of live bacteria in it. And their job is to acidify the milk, which then causes it to denature and coagulate. Standard yogurt is made from reduced fat milk. Typically. So first what we're going to do is we're going to cook the milk so it's warm, which is the first step for denaturing. Once we warm up the milk proteins are going to denature and start to coagulate. This step also traps water between the protein chains. At this point, after it's been warmed for usually like 30 minutes, you cool it back down a little bit, not cold, so you just cool it off a little bit. You add some bacteria, these two types of bacteria added, and the bacteria grow in the warm milk. And they produce a lot of lactic acid, which is going to intensify, one, that tangy flavor. If you've ever had unflavored yogurt, like plain yogurt, right, that kind of taste is all the lactic acid from all the bacteria that they're producing. And then it also forces the milk to start to gel, right, kind of solidify a little bit. If you do it rapidly, you let this heat up and you add a lot of protein all at once, you are going to get that kind of, when you open up your container of yogurt, you'll see the whey kind of sitting on top, kind of like that clear whey layer. That indicates there was a rapid heating, and they let it cook really, really fast. Be speedy about it. If they do it slower, so when they cool it back off, and this warm milk is cooler, more like room-ish temperature milk, then you'll have more of the Greek style yogurt, where it's much thicker and very little whey coming off of it. So the temperature of this warm milk that it grows in is going to tell you if it's going to be regular milk for regular yogurt or Greek yogurt, depends on how long you let it go for. Like Greek yogurt takes a day and a half to make, where standard yogurt takes about 3 hours. Some pros and cons for both. I don't really like, now that I've switched to Greek yogurt, I have a hard time going back to regular yogurt. I like thicker. It's more like pudding. Unless you don't like yogurt, in which case both are disgusting. Alright. So, not next week. Next week we're going to do taste testing. We're going to see how good your taste receptors are. The week after that we're going to make cheese. So, who's like us? We're going to make mozzarella and we're going to make ricotta. And one other type. I think I can make it. So, yeah. Go ahead. Yeah. Because we didn't have one for fall break, we didn't have one when I was gone. So we're going to have one to make up. Can't imagine people are going to leave early. Okay. Yeah, we are going to have a lab that week. What lab are we having that week? On the schedule. Oh, see, we're going to make cookies that week. Yeah. Yeah, that is the week we're going to make like 6 or 7 different types of cookies and see. Right, well, we're going to do different types of things. So, like, what if we do a doubling of the egg, which would add more protein, but also a lot of water to the recipe? But what if we instead swap out baking soda for baking powder? Or what if we do, there's going to be like 6 or 7 different variations on the cookie, and we're going to see. Some of them cause it to puff up, some of them cause it to flatten out, some are chewy, some are more cakey. We're going to try all these different types of. Right, they'll be like normal recipes. One group will do like the normal, boring recipe. And pretty much you're going to be allowed to do some variations on that. Alright, so cheese. Alright, there are 3 things that you need in order to make cheese. One is milk. Makes sense. Second one is this thing called rennet, which we'll talk about. And then the third one is, let's put it down here. Enzymes and or microbes, which would be like bacteria and things like that. Alright, so we'll start with the first one, milk. Milk is what's the thing that provides all the flavors. So depending on what animal you get your milk from, you're going to have different flavors of cheese that are possible. So every type of milk, that's the thing that defines, right? So feta, that comes from goat's milk, is very different than some other ricottas that come from cow milk. Even though they're similar in texture, very different flavors between the two of them. So sheep and buffalo milk have high fat content. So they tend to be richer, more flavorful cheeses. I don't think I spelled crumbly right. Goat cheese, like feta, has very little fat, and so it ends up being kind of a crumbly texture. Alright, so the only other thing about milk is that here in the U.S., we use all pasteurized milk to make all of our cheeses. Right, which means that the milk has been warmed up to kill off all the bacteria, and then it goes to the cheese making process. And depending on the cheese you want to make, that's not the best way to make it. In so if you're going to make brie or camembert, you use raw milk, because you need the raw milk enzymes in there to make it happen. And so if you are making brie, you can't make it here in the U.S. So if you buy U.S. brand brie, it means it's not true brie cheese. They've done some things to make it taste like brie. Really true brie cheese has to come from like Europe, because they don't have a raw milk ban over there. In Europe, you can drink raw milk, you can use it to make cheese, make butter, whatever. They don't have the ban on it that we do here. Yep. It's illegal to buy or drink raw milk, or to make anything with raw milk.
You cannot.
It is illegal to sell it if you choose to drink it yourself. Or, if there's a loophole, you can buy it if it's for your pet. So if you go to, so if you go to some of the local dairies here in town, will let you buy raw milk as long as you promise that it'll be for your pet. I don't know what pets drink milk from. Dogs? Do dogs drink milk? Yeah, but they're not supposed to. They're not supposed to drink milk. It is rough on their liver. Yeah, it's really, really hard.
I've been giving a little cat like no milk.
Yeah, how come
I mean, yeah, it's delicious. It's kind of like a lot of other things, right? There's lots of things that are delicious, but if you eat a lot of it, your life expectancy is a little shorter.
All these like little greeting cards, there's like a little kid, like drinking some milk.
Yeah, it's real rough on them.
Turns out it's milk.
It is bad for them. So, yeah,
It's like, let's do a pie for
you can buy cat milk. Yeah, it's great.
So if you go to the fresh market, you buy a thing of brie. It's not real brie.
Not real brie. It's made with
Have any
pasteurized.
of us ever had real brie?
Unless you travel to Europe. Yeah.
What would your name be? His name be.
Since 1950, the USDA decided that it was too dangerous. It's just that all kinds of crazy things breed in milk. Like some parasites, but salmonella, things like that cause, the same things the same reason why you're supposed to cook your chicken until it's almost a hockey puck, right? They're so concerned about you getting salmonella or something like that, E. coli, that they don't want you getting sick. I wish I had more persuasive reason than that, but safety. Yeah, it's kind of like when your parents, I guess not even your parents, when my parents came home from the hospital, like they were held in the lap of the person in the front seat smoking a cigarette, right? But now you can't take them a baby unless you have them in a 5-point harness with the latch system, rear facing, with your flashers on, and the nurse has to come check to make sure you got your safety seating correctly before you're allowed to leave the hospital. Super safe. We are like beyond normal safe into like paranoid safe. So, yeah, can't play outside, strangers. Yeah, no, you absolutely cannot do that. You can walk home with your baby, that's allowed, but they have to be in a car seat. You cannot leave the hospital with your baby unless it's physically in a car seat. Yeah, you can carry the car seat, that's fine, but it has to be in a car seat. Yeah. Yeah, and you can't walk out of the hospital. You have to take a wheelchair. Regardless of how good you're feeling, you must take a wheelchair. And the baby goes in the car seat in a separate, what do you call it, like a cart of some sort. They are so concerned that you're going to injure yourself and sue them. Yeah, because if I fall in the hospital, I can sue them. Same thing, like you can't go to the bathroom by yourself, you have to call for help, regardless of how well you're feeling. Because someone has to supervise you to make sure you're not going to fall. Yeah. You can sneak off, but then if you fall, it's your own fault. So one of my friends works in a hospital, and the lady had like surgery on her leg, and she thought she could do it. Right? She had like a cast on. Thought she got it, so she snuck off and then fell in the bathroom, and nobody found her. So then she sued the hospital. She said it was their fault because they didn't come check on her. I mean, that's why they're so super, super concerned about safety. Not exactly because they care about us. No, they're more concerned they're going to see you. Yeah, it's not a concern. Instead of worrying about their money, which is fair enough.
What was the other type of cheese besides brie?
Oh, camembert. Mhm. I think it's CAMEMBERT. Camembert. Fair. I took French about 1,000,000 years ago, so I don't know. All right, rennet. Rennet's super fascinating. I'm going to try and keep myself to just 5 minutes on rennet. I could speak all day. RENNET. Yeah, rennet is the first use of biotechnology. It's the first genetically modified organism that we have used to make food, which it started in, they guess, about 1,000,000 years ago. I mean, it's hard to know exactly when so many cultures have mentioned. But what you do originally, so let me say originally they did it this way, and we're going to do it a different way. So originally rennet, which is an enzyme, is they would take their milk, whatever kind of milk they got, milk from goat, sheep, whatever, and they would take a piece of calf stomach. So they've already killed the calf, they're reusing its parts. They take a little piece of calf stomach, who knows how they figured this out? Like a piece of calf stomach fell into their bucket of milk? I don't really know. But now you put it in there and it causes the milk to curdle. At room-ish temperature, right? So we can force milk to curdle if we heat it, but this is without heating. Just the enzyme forces the proteins to start to coagulate and separate out the curds from the whey. So that curdling makes the curds. I guess I never thought about that. Curdling curds, kind of the same word. That's clever. All right. I noticed that as I wrote them close to me. Then those are separated to make cheese. So when we're in lab in 2 weeks, we will not use a piece of calf stomach. We are going to use the pure enzyme, which is produced from vegetables. So it's technically vegan. So it's a vegetable that, there's a few different vegetables that make this enzyme, and then they purify it, and then you can buy it, and with food too, just like that. So, vegetable-based enzyme. Same thing, just not calf stomach. And so the enzymes that we're concerned about is chymosin. Chymosin. Which its job is to force the proteins to coagulate. Okay, that's pretty good. It took myself like 3 minutes. And we'll talk about some of the microbes. Same thing, it's going to be some bacteria that we're going to use. The microbes will be bacteria that we add to the process to get different tanginess of cheeses. All right. So this will be you in 2 weeks with your bag of cheese curds. They're all squeaky in your teeth. Unless you deep fry them, in which case they're more like mozzarella sticks. Yeah, so you can deep fry your curds with a little coating on. So, all right, let's see here. Okay, curdling can be done through a few different things, right? So the rennet is how we're going to do it. Oh, yes, sorry. The rennet is added causes curdling. look at this now, or look at it. It's also going to produce some lactic acid. And that's going to make the tanginess of the cheese. So depending on what cheese you start off with, it's going to make different amounts of lactic acid / the texture of it. So ours, because we're using vegetable rennet, is going to be more like we envision curdles, right? Kind of hard and sticky. That's kind of what we're going to make. If we did some other combinations of things, then you'd have more like goat cheese, which is kind of crumbly, not quite so firm. So once you have all your curds all together, we're going to drain it and salt it. So it's going to form actually like a solid block at the bottom of our pan with whey on top. We're going to drain off the whey, and then we're going to cut up the pieces of curd. Which you can save that whey if you want to do other things with it, but we're just going to throw it away. Okay, salt is then added and mixed into it. And it's going to do two major things. The first thing that salt does is it prevents mold from growing in your cheese. Right, which is why if you're on your pirate ship traveling across the world, you have your salted meat and your salted vegetables. It's to prevent mold growth. It doesn't eliminate it. It doesn't prevent it. I'm just going to add more. So it's going to pull some of the excess water out of it. So, right, we're going to drain it first, and we salt it. It's going to pull more of the excess water out of it and make the cheese even more firm. And then ripening. So ripening is going to depend on the cheese you're wanting to make. The cheeses we're going to make don't need to be ripened. They're going to be eaten at the end of 2 hours. We can eat the cheese. For some of the other cheeses, it requires a ripening process, maturation process. Is cheddar what, E-R, A-R? R. Right, so some of our more popular cheeses, cheddar, Swiss, Colby Jack, all of those guys. They would start off bland, kind of like the white cheeses you're going to make. Ricotta and mozzarella are not particularly flavorful cheeses, right? I mean, they're great with other things, but you don't really usually eat a piece of mozzarella by itself. It's fine. But some of these other ones, when they are left to mature, they develop a lot of flavor. And typically it's in a month to 1 year is how long they're left to ripen. If you leave them much longer than that, it goes from being flavorful to they get kind of bitter, the fat kind of goes rancid, and so they get off flavor. Let's see. I call it diversity, I don't really know why. Let me call it that. We'll call it water concentration, which is what I want to talk about. Alright, the more moisture will be eliminated the longer you let the cheese sit. Alright, so the cheese we're going to make is going to be a soft cheese. It's still going to be 80% water, really. The longer you let it sit and drain and ripen, you'll get down to about 30% water, which are the hard cheese, so like your blue cheese, or some of these right here, the cheddar, Swiss, and Colby are considered semi-soft cheese, right? Because you do need a knife to kind of get through them, but you could squish your fingers into them; they have a little bit of zip. Some of these harder cheeses, once you let it sit for about a year, they're very little water. Like Parmesan? That's a hard cheese too. Alright, let's see. Alright, so, turns out we've been storing cheese wrong forever. Cheese prefers to be stored at room temperature. So, it's because if you let the cheese warm up to room temperature, the fat starts to get loose again, right? Because it's kept cold, the fats are all kind of solidified. You warm it up to a loose room temperature, the fats get all kind of wiggly again, and the fats where all the flavor's at. And so, by warming it to room temperature, your cheese will taste better than it does cold. So, next time you want to serve cheese, let it come to room temperature before you go serving everybody. Your little cheese blocks. They'll seem tastier than the real aspirin. It preserves better, that's why we keep it in the fridge. Yeah. Yeah, well, I guess that's a texture thing rather than a flavor thing. They're more flavorful, but they're a little squishier. Okay, so flavor is best. Alright, so if cheeses are cold, the fat is still congealed, and the proteins are stiff. Which prevents the flavor from getting to your tongue. Nose. So the warmer it is, the more you can smell it because the flavor gets more volatile. And then the flavor molecules are also better able to get across your tongue and give it like a coating. This is cheese. And here, you should take that. I actually don't eat cheese, so I have no idea. But this is probably true. I don't really like it. It's gross. I'll eat yogurt, but I won't drink milk. It's not no dairy thing, it's just cheese is gross. It's like squishy, it smells funny, and I will eat pizza, but only to have Sainsbury cheese. Not milk. Yeah. No, I'm fine if I never eat cheese again. It'll be fun. Alright, let's see if I can tell you 4 things about cooking with cheese. We'll do 4 things. 4 quick things. Alright, melting. The ability of cheese to what we consider melt is determined by how much water it has. Alright, so the hard cheeses like Parmesan, those guys don't melt. Right? You would never put Parmesan as your layer on pizza. You can shake it on top, but still, no matter how hot it is, it really is kind of like a hard crumble. Same thing with feta. I forgot, they don't really melt. That's because they don't have very much water. And when we are melting, we are, same thing. We denature the proteins of milk to make cheese. When we add heat, we're going to denature the cheese proteins. Alright, you can also have non-melting cheese, which is like your Parmesan or the ricotta we're going to make. Doesn't melt, regardless of what you do. If you add heat to it, so instead of the proteins denaturing, you're actually just going to boil off the water. With dry, hard cheese bits. And it comes a lot with the way that these cheeses are made. So, depending on how you curdle the milk, you'll end up with a non-melting or a melting. Because when they curdle, they re-adhere to each other. And so depending on how they get stuck together, they'll either be able to be broken apart again, or the way the cheese is made, they can't break apart. Alright, stringiness, if that's a word. Right, when you think of your pizza, right, the stringiness of the pizza. This is going to happen when casein, which is our milk protein, it cross-links with some calcium 2+ in there. It is, yep. This allows the protein to stretch, but not denature. When they're being heated, they get stretchier rather than denaturing or falling apart. And again, it's going to depend on the cheese making, on which way you made your cheese. If we do it with a lot of acid to force the cheese to curdle, you won't have any calcium in there, so those cheeses won't be stringy. But if you do it with rennet, that should be fine. And last thing, those things called processed cheese. So this would be your Velveeta, your Kraft yellow squares of cheese, right? They come in little single wrappy things, or your Easy Squeeze cheese. Those are all processed cheeses, which means they're not true cheese. They've been processed. They are made from what is considered scrap cheese. It's kind of like the hot dog of cheeses. Yeah, it's whatever didn't make it into the original blocks of cheeses. They put them all together, melt them all up, and add together some citric acid and phosphate. Going to add together some citric acid. It's going to remove the calcium. So, right, all of your processed cheeses are not usually stringy. Right, thinking mozzarella. Velveeta, when you think of it with Rotel, not really stringy. Loopy, is that queso? Same kind of thing, like kind of queso consistency. creamy, but it can melt. You can melt your Velveeta squares. The other kind of cheese you may run across is low-fat, no-fat cheese. It's made with skim milk, which has no fat proteins in it, which falls into the category of non-melting. If it has no fat, it cannot melt. So low-fat, no-fat cheese is good, I guess, for your health, but not as good for making other things with it. If you want to just eat a square cheese. Alright, that is, in a nutshell, everything cheese.